Hi guys, and welcome back to another championship video, and today we're moving on to round 29. Recap on round 28, one score correct, QPR beating Coventry 2-1. Let's get in to my predictions. And starting off with Huddersfield taking on Stoke. Now Huddersfield, they're unbeaten in 8, so they're on a very good run of form, and they beat Reading 4-3 in their last game. Stoke, they've lost 2 in a row and they've lost 4 of their last 5, so they're really struggling at the moment. I really favoured Huddersfield for this one, but Stoke do have a good side and I think they're just in a bit of a bad patch. And I can see this ending a draw. I can't see Stoke losing a third in a row, so I'm going to go 1-1. Barnsley versus Bournemouth next. And Barnsley, they've lost 3 in a row, they're bottom of the table, and they've only won 2 games all season. Bournemouth, they've lost 2 in a row against Luton and Hull. So Bournemouth have slipped up a bit now again. They went on a big bad patch, then they won 2 in a row and it looked like it was all going to turn around. They've started losing again. I think they'll be okay in this one. Those losses have seen them drop down to 3rd in the table, but I think they'll win this one quite comfortably as Barnsley are really struggling. Bournemouth to win it 2-0. Fulham versus Blackpool now, and Fulham, they have won 4 in a row, scoring 22 goals in those 4 games. It's quite incredible. Blackpool, they've won 2 in a row, both 1-0 scorelines. And they won the reverse fixture 1-0 as well, which is quite surprising. Do I think they can do it again? Take more points off Fulham? I'm not so sure. Fulham are looking very strong. I don't think they'll get loads and loads like the 7s and 6s, but I can see Fulham winning 3-1. Hull versus Swansea now, and Hull, they'd won 2 in a row against Blackburn and Bournemouth. And then McCann gets sacked. All because they've got new owners and they wanted to bring in their own man. Think it was a bit harsh, but they did say if they're not planning on continuing with this guy and waiting for him to slip up, there's no point keeping him there in the first place. Which is a good enough reason, I guess. It was just a shame for McCann to go out after 2 such big shocking wins. Swansea, unbeaten in 3, drawn 2 of those. And I can see the same result here. I'm going to go 1-1. Luton versus Blackburn now. And Luton, they've lost 1 in 6. 4 of those games being wins. Blackburn, they've lost 1 in 12, with 9 of those games being wins. So they're 2 teams who aren't losing many games at the moment. And they're both in great form. Blackburn did pick up a 1-0 win against a very informed Middlesbrough. I didn't think they'd win that. I thought Middlesbrough were in such good form that they'd beat Blackburn. But Blackburn bounced back perfectly after losing with a 1-0 win against Middlesbrough. As for this game, difficult to call. On either of these teams' day, they could win quite comfortably. But I think I'm just going to go for a high-scoring draw here. 2-2. Middlesbrough versus Coventry now. And Middlesbrough, they lost 1-0 to Blackburn after 7 unbeaten, and it included 6 wins in that run. Coventry, they've won 2 of their last 3, so they look to be back in form because they went through quite a big patch of not winning a game. Can they make a playoff push and, carry on the form they had at the start of the season that saw them in the playoffs? We'll have to wait and see. As for this game, I just think Middlesbrough have the upper hand, so I'm going to go Middlesbrough win 2-1. Millwall versus West Brom next. And Millwall, they've lost 3 in a row. Not something that I really saw coming. They're normally a team that pick up a draw every 2, maybe 3 games, but they've started losing a bit recently and slipping down the table. West Brom, they've lost 2 out of their last 3. So they're also another team that are struggling. And they were unbeaten at home, but Preston showed up and beat them 2-0. So West Brom's unbeaten home record is now gone in the league. This is difficult to call because I think both teams are in a bit of a rough patch at the moment, and it's just whoever's going to come out of it first. And I'm going to go for that typical Millwall scoreline because I can see that being the way that this game is settled. So, 1-1. Preston versus Bristol City now. And Preston, they won 2-0 away at West Brom, and they haven't lost many games under Ryan Lowe at all. He's had a good impact since he's came in. Bristol City, they've lost 2 of their last 3. And if I had to choose one word to describe Bristol City, unpredictable. I know a lot of this league is pretty unpredictable. Anyone can beat anyone. But Bristol City are really, really weird because they go through patches where they look good and they win games, and then they just, at like the click of a button, they just start losing and playing terribly. It's really weird. And they are very, very spiky. But I'm going to go for the home side Preston. I'm going to back them here to win 2-1. Now for what I think is the biggest difference in form between two sides meeting this weekend. QPR versus Reading. Now QPR, they are unbeaten in 5 and they've won 4 of those. So they're in brilliant form. Reading lost 4 in a row and not won in 7. So Reading are really struggling and QPR are very consistent. I found them to be one of the most consistent sides this season. They don't really go through a patch of losses and draws. They just tend to have a few losses dotted here and there. So they are consistent, and I think they're going to win this one. But I'm going to go for the QPR scoreline that I like to go for. Low scoring and just not conceding. 1-0. Peterborough versus Sheffield United now. And Peterborough, for the second time this season, didn't lose away. They'd won 1, lost the rest, and then they came to St Andrews, went 2-0 up, bottled it at the end, but it ended 2-2. So they took their 4th point away so far this season. Sheffield United only lost 1 of their last 8, and they beat Luton 2-0 in their last game, and that's a good form Luton as well. For this, I'm going to go again. Low scoring, but to keep them out. Sheffield United to win 1-0. Big game on Sunday now. Derby taking on Blues. Now Derby, they lost to bitter rivals Nottingham Forest 2-1. But that came after 5 unbeaten with 4 wins. So Derby in much better form than any of the teams around them, and if they can keep that sort of form up, they'll survive. As long as they're a club at the end of the season, I think they'll survive. I'm pretty confident that they will. Blues, unbeaten in 2, which I feel like I haven't said for a while because we tend to lose at least 1 every 2, but that's came from beating Barnsley 2-1 and drawing 2-2 at home with Peterborough. Would have expected 6 points out of those 2 games. We don't normally perform against teams near the bottom of the table. So yeah, it's a hard one to take, that 2-2. But when you're 2-0 down in the 85th minute, you definitely take a point. We have made 2 new signings on Thursday, this was. Bakuna came in and Lyle Taylor came in as well. So 2 good signings that I'm expecting to slot straight into the first team on the weekend. And yeah, I'm going to be positive. I think Bakuna can really transform our midfield. And I'm going to go Blues to win 2-1. And finally, Cardiff taking on Nottingham Forest. Now Cardiff, they haven't won in 6, losing 4 of those games. Really in bad form. Nottingham Forest won 3 in a row, just outside the playoffs. So I'm going to keep this one very short. Forest to win 2-0. And that's it. So those are my predictions for this weekend's Championship fixtures. Let me know down below what your predictions are for these games. Please like the video, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more Championship content. Up the Blues!